It's crazy how light it is today. Like, it's weird recording this early.
That's true.
Yeah, it looks like Oregon out
I
there.
know.
Yeah,
Look,
that's true.
I think we're in the same place finally.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we've unified.
I've had my blinds closed for pretty much the whole day though, so it all looks the same to me.
Why don't you open your blinds?
Because
It's all Greek
I
to
like
Moses.
to sit in the dark, and maybe one day I'll develop, like radar or sonar or something like a real animal.
Like 1,000 years.
Or you're gonna become Bane.
Or you become Bane.
Also gonna be.
Or I guess Batman.
Uh,
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think I need to feel a few $1 billion to become Batman, though.
Art's dead parents.
I can become his dead parents overnight, Alex. I can just get shot. That can work.
So you're gonna birth Bruce Wayne and then die just so your kid can become Batman.
Such is the circle of life.
Oh my god, it's getting out of control already.
Because Bruce Wayne's the billionaire.
Yeah.
Batman is the dead parents. So that's what I'm saying.
But they're all one and the same.
Yeah, you don't need $1 billion to be Batman. You just need like a death wish.
I can be like those Batmans from The Dark Knight where they're wearing like hockey pads and they have baseball bats and stuff. And they're just all out
I
of
can see
shape
that.
and stuff.
What's the difference between you and me?
hockey
I'm not wearing hockey pads.
There's a lot of difference between them
Yeah.
when you really think about it.
There really is just like training
Yeah.
and, psychotic behavior, some would say.
Six pack abs.
Yeah,
know?
six pack abs. Yeah, instead of a
Batmobile.
keg, weighing you down.
Yeah.
Imagine just trying to jump off a building and just your cape not supporting you, and you're just dead on impact.
That's like
What? What's that?
in Kick-Ass. The beginning of Kick-Ass.
Yeah.
There's like that guy who like stands up. He has like wings at the top of a building and like jumps off. Like he's gonna be a superhero and just like smashes straight
God.
into a car.
Exactly.
I haven't seen that movie in such a long
Oh
time.
man,
I know. It was so good.
that movie is
I saw it in
great.
theaters back in the day. It was so good.
I just remember Nicolas
man.
Cage trying to be like the Batman character. Like they even made his costume look like Batman, just without the ears
Oh, yeah.
and stuff.
I thought the
Yeah.
ears.
The ears, yeah.
You don't need those ears.
Mm.
Yeah.
Well, on that note, let's transition. Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of One for Safety. I am your host today, Victor Moses Navarro, and alongside my good buddies, Alexander L. Dunn and Philip Arroyo Long. Leatrice is on vacation for this episode, so it's just going to be the three of us today. And continue on from last week's episode, we're going to continue with speaking about foreign films. And today we'll be talking about another film that was nominated for Best Foreign Film, the Academy Awards this year, which is, I hope I'm saying this right. Oh my God. Quo Vadis Aida. I hope I said that right. And that's a selection from Bosnia and Herzegovina. And before we go on, I have to tell the audience, whoever's listening, tell your mom, tell your dad, tell your brother, tell your sister, follow and subscribe. We like to see your beautiful faces and your notes and your comments. So continue doing the good work and we will keep bringing good old content to you. So before we move on to the episode, Philip, what are you having?
I am having a smoothie. It's
Oh,
delicious,
man.
nutritious.
Is that a homemade
One of those
smoothie?
cool straws too.
It is a homemade smoothie. Yeah, it's got a lot of different things in it, but namely kale from our garden.
Oh god damn.
From your garden.
You've really become
Delicious.
a port.
Okay, look, to be fair, the kale was left over when
I
we got
know.
here. The previous tenants left it. We know the story.
It's all part of their plan.
And now I just have to use it. The garden is popping off. It's crazy
Really?
out back there. It's been raining so much and like the plants are just exploding. And I for sure thought the kale was gonna die. Because like we completely cleaned it off and it was just like basically sticks in the ground. And I was like, we need to pull that out, y'all. It's dead. We need to let it go. Just throw it away. And Serena was like, no, it's going to come back. And I was like, yeah, all right. Yeah.
With a vengeance.
And
it came
I was
back.
wrong. I was very wrong.
And now it's in your
Yeah, it came back. It is exploding.
Yeah.
So now I have to find anything to do with kale again. Once again, I'm in the same spot of trying to figure out how to eat kale that I don't actually
You have like too much kale
And smoothies.
now.
Smoothies is the
You're
answer.
just like shit. Like we have all this kale, we have to do stuff with it now. Like come up with creative ideas of what to do with kale.
yeah.
Oh man.
Is that all
Exactly.
that's growing in the garden?
No, we have kale. We've got lettuce and carrots. I've got a little like patch of green onions that are also going
Wow.
wild. We got peas, tomatoes, and artichoke. Yeah, it's the whole gang.
The whole garden game.
Wait, were all these left? Or yeah,
No. Just the kale. The kale was the only thing that was
Oh,
left
okay.
behind. Everything else we've
gotcha.
planted.
Okay, that's cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm.
Green,
What about you? What are you planting in yourself today, Alex?
not kale.
What are you watering yourself with?
God. I don't know why it sounds so weird. Okay, I wish I had a joke there. I don't. I'm drinking a hard seltzer, actually. I thought I'd like take it easy, do some nice things for my tum-tum. I had some main chick for lunch today. It's not Monday, but I had main chick Wednesdays.
Won't drink alcohol, but we'll have main chick for lunch to help his stomach.
Exactly.
What is
Yeah,
main
yeah.
chick?
What is main chick?
Please educate
What,
me.
you don't know about? Oh, wow, I thought we had this.
Oh,
I thought we talked
fill
about
up.
the good. Well, I thought we spread the good war. The
good word.
Word of
yeah.
good word of our Lord main chick. It's basically like a spicy chicken place that I think originated from like San Diego or Anaheim. I forget which place it actually started. Or was it in the beach? Somewhere in the beach? I forget where the original spot was. I think Timothy Delgado is actually the person who started it or invested in it or something. But it's basically a spicy chicken place. We were big Howlin' Rays fans for a very long time, and they opened one up here in Pasadena. But there's something weird about this one, and I know we're not the only people that think this.
Yeah.
Like everyone who's eaten at the Pasadena one, I know, has been a little disappointed. Like it's not as good as the original. Like I think it's the coleslaw is my theory. So I was looking for like a good spicy chicken place to like fill that gaping hole in my heart. And so when Main Chick opened, I tried it, and it's like filled
That void.
that missing piece. So yeah, that void left by Howlin' Rays.
Hmm.
But anyway, so to hopefully help my stomach digest that better, this is a blue raspberry hard seltzer called Glacial Drift from Bottle Logic, and it's Luxology.
I like that label.
I know we got
It's very hip.
one of our faves, the Bottle Logic.
Oh yeah.
Doing a hard seltzer because everyone's doing the hard seltzers now.
All the kids.
Even Budweiser.
That's so weird.
Yeah,
That's what all the cool kids are drinking these days.
I know.
Like why drink a
people
Budweiser
drink.
hard seltzer when you can just drink a Bud Light or whatever? I think they're both terrible anyways, but it just doesn't make sense to me.
Better for your stomach, I guess.
I don't know.
Because the Bud Light is just regular
I don't
water.
know. It just feels so awkward to me. I think Corona's doing the same thing. Like they have their own hard seltzer, and it's just like, why? It doesn't make
Dude.
any sense to me. Maybe it's just me being old.
Because it's like everyone follows the fads, Like it's like when everyone was doing build your own pizza things a while back, and
Yeah.
there was build your own burgers a while back, and then it's just like now
Oh my
right
God,
now,
there is a Corona seltzer.
dude, everyone has
Oh,
seltzers,
yeah.
dude. Every single company has a seltzer right now. We saw Topo Chico has a
That's
seltzer,
true.
which
yeah.
is super random.
Like a hard seltzer?
Yeah.
Yeah, our hard seltzer.
What?
Oh,
Yeah,
yeah.
every company is making one. It's just everywhere. Anyway, so let me tell you how this one is, though.
Mm.
That's good.
Hey, he says it's good.
This is why we drink them. This is why I drink them, because it's kind of just like, oh, it just tastes like a seltzer. But I'm gonna probably, if I drank a few of these, I'd probably get drunk.
Yeah, I was about to say. I think that's the appeal of the hard seltzer. It doesn't seem like you're drinking, disgusting liquor to get fucked up, because they kind of like sneak up on you and whatnot.
Yeah, and like they're better tasting. Like you said, like why don't you drink a Bud Light? It's because like it tastes like trash. It's just like there's really nothing there.
For reference, I would never tell anyone to drink a Bud Light.
Yeah, over anything.
Is that a horrible insult from you?
Yeah, if I tell you to drink a Bud Light, it means I don't like
pretty-
you.
Just like that. It's either drink a Bud
like
Light or eat at Subway.
Oh God,
One of those two.
Subway's another
You're a bad
place I don't
person.
like.
We know.
One of these days, I'm gonna like piss you off or something, and like I'm gonna come visit, and you're just gonna give me like a Subway sandwich and a Bud Light, and I'll know.
No,
Oh,
that's
no.
impossible, Philip. You can never piss me off.
Moses, go ahead. If you pull up
All
a
right,
Bud
well-
Light right now, I swear to God.
No, I swear to God, it's not a Bud Light.
Drink a Bud Light.
I'm actually drinking a West Coast IPA called Everyday Zombies. Here, I just have it here, and again, Love the artwork on the cans. So let's take a listen here. Here we go. Yeah.
I love Everyday Zombie as a name. It's like kind of adorable, actually.
It kind of sounds like a post-punk band.
Yeah. Oh, paperback.
Hey, that's delicious. I like that.
Nice.
Nice.
That was pretty good. Yeah, delicious. Would recommend. If I like you, I'll tell you to drink this.
There you go. You'll be an everyday zombie.
Alex, Philip, Leatrice, wherever you are in the universe, have an everyday zombie. Listeners, have an everyday zombie. All right, well, moving on from what are we having? Like we do every week, we have an artist spotlight. So, Philip, why don't you take it away on this one?
Thanks, Moses. We actually don't have an artist spotlight this week, but I'm going to take this second to shout out everybody out there, all of our listeners who are working on cool things. So if that's you or anybody else you know, again, hit us up in our DMs because we want to shout you out. Moving on.
All right. Well, thank you, Philip. So moving forward, weekly obsessions. Who's got them this week? Because I know I don't.
I've got one.
You can go first, Philip.
Okay. Mine is definitely Castlevania Season 4.
Man. Spoiler free, please, as much as possible.
Yeah, spoiler free. It's great. That's all I can say. Castlevania has been one of my favorite shows that Netflix has put out, and finishing it last 2 days ago, I was like kicking myself that we didn't talk about it on our video game adaptations because
True.
I really think that it's one of the best video game adaptations out there. It is fantastic. I've never played the games, but from what I understand, it's pretty faithful to the source material. The animation in it is just absolutely gorgeous. And something that I noticed this season more so than the previous seasons is I feel like the animators really, you could tell that they were comfortable with the characters that they were animating. Because specifically, whoever animated Sypha Belnades, the warlock or like the witch that hangs out with Trevor Belmont, like her animation, her like magic animation it's like Legend of Korra levels of like detail and intricacy. It's so good. It's like an absolute blast to watch. It's a super short series, so if you haven't checked it out and you like really cool action anime inspired TV shows, I highly recommend it.
Castlevania, that's about like Dracula and stuff, right?
Sort of, yeah.
Yes.
Okay. You know what? To be honest, I remember trying to watch the first season and I just could not get into it. Maybe I just didn't give it the attention it deserves. Maybe I'll go back and try it out. But I just remember like trying and being like, oh man, I just can't get into it right now.
Yeah, do yourself a favor.
Do
yourself a favor and watch that show.
Because I remember you saying that you loved Blood of Zeus.
Yeah,
right?
I did. Yeah.
Yeah.
So Blood of Zeus is the same creative team.
Interesting. Okay.
That did Castlevania. I think that like they're at their best in Castlevania.
Yeah, it's ruthless and just good storytelling and good characters and
amazing pacing. And I think that like it sucks that this is the last season of the show, but what a way to end it. What a great, just perfect pacing. And I think that speaks to when you know that your show is going to be a limited run, when you know how long your show is going to be, you can pace out the entire show so that everything happens just one after another, but it never feels rushed. It just, everything happens so naturally, and like the way that they weave so many storylines together, it's almost Game of Thrones-esque. Like it's Game of Thrones levels of like political intrigue. It's really good.
Yeah. I mean, I thought the third season ended on a really good note too. So I just haven't had a chance to sit down with it. But you talking about it makes me think I'll give it a go probably sometime this weekend or something.
Nice. All right, Alex. Well, you had an obsession. Let us have it. Let us have it.
What's probably stopping me from watching Castlevania actually then is Resident Evil 8 Village. I finally took the plunge of getting that, and yeah, it's just been it's just been great. Like any free moment I've had over the last few days, like after work and stuff, I've been kind of diving into it, and I really love it. I mean, I don't know if either of you have played 7 or played any of the Resident Evils for that matter, but
I have not.
They're all, I mean, they're all pretty good for the most. 6 is kind of trash. I never really got through it, but it's definitely not great. But most of them are pretty good. But this one's closest to 7, which so it's all in first person and it follows the same characters for the most part. It just has like a really, really. It also has vampires, so there you go. It can maybe slightly connected to Castlevania.
Really?
Yeah, there's like multiple types of bosses and different types of creatures you face because you are this guy Ethan Winters, and in 7, spoilers, well, I guess I won't tell you what happened. You may view eventually play 7, I won't tell you, but basically it continues his story and you end up in this really creepy village that has like werewolves, which they call lycans but werewolves,
Right.
and there's like a castle you have to go into at some point that has vampires in it, and then eventually you get out of that, and there's other weird, creepy creatures and some good stuff. And but it's just really, really well done. I think in some ways I prefer it to 7. It's like similar, but I think it's almost a little bit more actiony.
Oh, wow.
I think 7 was a bit more creepy and like this is still atmospheric, but this is like action-based atmosphere. Where I find myself more just like finding the next gun, being more like I'm gonna run in and fucking shoot some vampires, shoot some werewolves. I don't know if it's because of that fact why I find it less creepy, because it's like it feels more like you're fighting monsters. I'm not really sure, but that might be the reason why. But I've really, really enjoyed it, and it was really tough to decide to get this one because Returnal also came out, and I was like, should I buy Returnal instead of this? But I took the plunge with this instead of Returnal, and I've not regretted the decision at all.
Yeah, I've heard really good things about it. I've also heard great things about Resident Evil 7, but I'm not a big horror game fan. I don't know. I've never been. I have a hard time getting
Immersed.
That's the word.
Okay.
Yeah, I have a hard time getting immersed. So I have a really hard time getting immersed in horror games, which I feel like the best way to experience them is to let yourself get immersed. But I'm really bad about kind of making myself keep like one foot in and one foot out, so that when it gets too scary, I can be like, just kidding, you're just a video game. Yeah, I'm not afraid of you. Which just isn't the fun way to play it.
Yeah, I've always been able to kind of keep that like almost like maybe it's from years of watching YouTubers play scary games. Like I kind of keep that same mentality. Like, okay, well, like I can kind of joke about it. I can kind of talk through it. And like it helps kind of make it less scary. And I'm usually not scared per se until like after the fact, and then maybe I'm thinking about it like later, like at night or something, and that's when I get scared. I'm like, fuck, like I remember that really creepy hallway when I was playing a so and so game, and when there was something standing at the edge of it. But yeah, I think if you were gonna try one, this might be the one then, because again, like there's some creepy stuff, but it's not the same kind of scary. It's more, there's some jump scares, like it's gotten me. Like there's like one part where you're like looking out a window. They're told trolls about it too. They're like, look out this window to get this code, and I'm like, all right, cool. And I look out the window, and then like a lycan's like, blah, 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 and like hits me, and I'm just like, what the fuck? I'm like, you assholes! Like that's like, was he just hiding underneath the window the entire time? Like I don't know. But for the most part, it's more, yeah, I'd say more atmospheric than like scary. I'm not really scared. I'm just kind of like, oh, this is kind of spooky maybe, but not scary.
What was that really popular horror game a couple years ago where you're like in a small town and you have like a video camera? It's like it has like night vision on it. What? Outlast. Yeah, I remember one time I was at a friend's house and they were like, oh man, you should play Outlast. So I started playing Outlast, and like I got like 10 minutes into the game and was just like hiding in a bush. And they were like, Philip, you have to go do something. And I was like, no, I could just stay here until the sun rises, and then it won't be as scary. And they were like, no, Philip, you have to play the game. And it ended up being like kind of good at the game because I was moving through it like frustratingly slow. Everybody was like, fucking do something. And I'm like, nah, I'm just going to stand right here in this corner for the next like 10 minutes and wait.
Oh my God, that's so funny. No, I get it. It's scary games where it's like I think you're really, really into them, or it's really difficult to play them for people. I don't think there really is an in between, to be honest. Because I know a lot of friends are the same way. Like, don't play scary games at all. Really are scared of them. Like, just can't even get into it because they're too scared. You know. But I am one of those people who fucking loves them, and I think they might be my favorite genre of any game, to be honest. Because I just think that like they're the closest to like actually eliciting a really strong emotional response, which is fear. You know, like I think that other games are fun, but like horror games really like, you know, like you like are actually constantly feeling something. You're like, oh God, I'm fucking terrified, or I'm like, this is spooky, and I gotta like think about how this is making me feel the entire time. But anyway, I don't want to make this about just Resident Evil 8 for this long, but it's a great game. I really highly suggest it. I really have enjoyed it so far.
Well, with that being said, let's move on to the topic of today's episode. Woo. So, as we mentioned in the beginning, we'll be continuing our foreign film themed podcast episode, and so today we're going to be talking about the film Quo Vadis Aida. As I said earlier, it's a film from Bosnia, and here's the logline for the film. Aida is a translator for the UN in the small town of Srebrenica. When the Serbian army takes over the town, her family is among the thousands of citizens looking for shelter in the UN camp. And so the three of us saw it. And what do you guys think? What are your initial thoughts, reactions?
Initial thought? Wow.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah, it's very intense in a way that you don't expect, because it's kind of it's like quiet for most of it, and it's like a quiet intensity. It's like something you don't expect. It's almost like a thriller, so it kind of catches you off guard with how intense it can be.
I think if there's one word I could use to describe the feeling, is it's a very visceral movie. You really can put yourself in the shoes of Aida through the whole movie. She's a very relatable character. And I had no trouble believing that this was real, because I mean, this was obviously based on true events. And I think that the movie did a great job of telling the story without trying to make a spectacle out of it. And I think in a lot of ways, this kind of relates back to what we were talking about last week with another round about how if this movie had been made in the United States, in Hollywood, I think we would be watching a very different movie, a very, very different movie. But I think that even down to like the cinematography of the movie, it all creates a very visceral, like realistic story that feels respectful to the story of like what actually happened.
Right. And so you guys know what the translation of the title means?
I do.
I don't think I actually ever found that out. What does it
so
mean?
It's actually, if I'm correct in my research, Quo Vadis is Latin for whither goest thou? So basically, like loosely translated, it's like where are you gonna go, Aida? What are you gonna do? And I think it's very fitting, because obviously, like the whole film, like to me, I just felt very helpless and very powerless. And you know, she's just stuck in between, you know, what to do, and do you serve, you know, the higher cause and your duty to protect, you know, your nation and your countrymen, or is it more important to, you know, say forget all that, I got to make sure like my family is safe? And it's basically like, you know, this choice of what to do. And it really struck a chord with me. And I know if I was in the situation, I would 100% no. I would say, fuck the higher cause. I'm going to make sure my family is safe. And like, that's my personal take to it. But obviously, you know, there's a lot more moral dilemmas than just that. I guess maybe I just don't have the moral high ground Aida does. But like,
well, I think for most of it, she is choosing family. Like, I feel like most of the film is her trying to just save her family, you know, at some point. Like, she is trying to do good amongst her countrymen, but I think to me, that's the way I took it. It was like, almost the thrilling part was like she knows she can't save everyone, but if she could save her family, that's all she's trying to really she's hoping to do to some degree.
Right. Oh no, I was just gonna say, do you think? And I feel like this is a pretty obvious question, that if she had the means to save everyone, you think she would? Obviously, I think yes.
Yeah,
right?
without a doubt.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
I don't think she was a bad person. I think she cared about all the people.
Yeah.
But she knew she
Yeah, of
couldn't,
course.
like I think
Right.
deep down it was very obvious to her that she couldn't save everyone, but as long as she could hopefully save her children and mainly I think her children, but obviously her husband as well, that's all she really had hoped to do at the end there, when she knew it was pretty hopeless at some point.
Mm-hmm. I think that one thing that this movie does really well is capture that sense of hopelessness.
Right.
And we've previously watched a lot of war films, and I think that there's usually like a sense of hope somewhere like nestled into those movies, and I just never got that sense in this movie. That like from the beginning it just feels like there's an army outside, because there is, and it's like it's a war film, but the war is over. Like the war has been won, and there's this like overarching sense of like impotence, of like being stuck in the base. Like they don't have power, they don't have enough food, they don't have fuel. The UN is doing nothing, and they're just like stuck.
They were just powerless. They couldn't do anything.
Exactly.
Yeah. It's almost like a horror film in some ways. Like she's trying to save from the monster in some ways, and she like, how can I save them from?
Well, and oddly enough, like what you were saying about how horror games to you are so like interesting because they are able to elicit like real emotion in you. I think that the same can be said about this film, that it really does elicit like real emotions in a way that there's a lot of movies that I've watched that are like really dramatic that don't really get that much of a kick out of me, because I still feel like I'm like watching a movie. But like the story being told, and honestly like the performances of everybody in the film is like very moving.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
It feels very real. Like it feels very raw and real. And I think something to bring back a point that you said on your initial thoughts, that Ida was extremely relatable. And I think because the issue is very relatable, like even though there's this like gigantic war, and obviously and anyone in that situation would want to save everyone, deep down in the end, I feel like anyone, as horrible as it sounds, would want to focus on saving their family probably first, because those are the people you probably care about the most. And like, I need to save these people, because not to say that everyone else isn't important, but like, so I think when she's doing what she's doing and trying to save her family, you kind of don't blame her. You don't judge her in a way that, it's like she's not doing something that you would normally look at as horrible, because you think like, what can she do? She can't do anything. Like she's helpless to help anyone else. But, and if you were in her situation, you probably would try to do that thing first as well. So I think, I think that feeling of rawness and realness and kind of hopelessness is also met with this kind of, because of how real that situation feels to all of us.
So kind of going back to the point you were kind of mentioning earlier, Philip, films in the United States are made, war films in the United States are made, there's this sense of hope. And so with this one, it's kind of the complete opposite. Do you think that's because of the point of view of the character and their situation? Because I feel like a lot of times American war films are, their point of view is from a soldier. And this one definitely, in this film, she's definitely not a soldier, but she's trying to do, what she can to save people. And so I feel like if you're not a big superpower, you're not going to have that same outlook that the United States does.
I think I totally agree with what you're saying. I think that relates back to our relationship with war as a country, as the United States. Like the history of war for us is like the Revolutionary War, right? Where we literally overcame the largest empire in the world to declare our independence, right? And then we had the Civil War and then World War I. And like so much throughout history, we kind of have seen ourselves as like the victor, as the good guy, as the savior, especially in World War I and World War II. And then it starts to get a little more morally gray, but we still have never experienced war on the home front. We have never had a war here in the United States of like a foreign invader. And I think that that really shifts the conversation around war, because we can't speak to that kind of feeling, that sense, that experience.
Yeah. And I would say what makes this different than even other American films is because also we tend to choose things that can be looked at as a war, as a battle. There's some kind of honor that can be had in the things that are happening. And in some ways, this film, even though it is based about a war, it's really based about a massacre. Like, it's really like, we're not seeing a war. There's no actual fighting per se. Like, there's a little bit of fighting at the beginning there. But even then, what you're seeing is the aftermath of a battle that's already happened in which they've already lost. And now we're waiting to see as these people get massacred. So, like, so I think that's the difference between what a lot of American films do, which is more like, let's focus on a really specific battle in which either there is like, even if we lost, there is some kind of like fight to be had, and we can see that fight, and maybe we can kind of pick sides and see the good and evil, and hopefully find some kind of good silver lining in all these things, even if it's an anti-war film. But this is purely like, this was a terrible, horrendous act against another country that some other country did. That there really is no honor or silver lining to be had. It's purely like a genocide massacre that happened, because in theory it also in some way is a genocide, because those people moved into their other people's homes and like took their land and just kind of so willingly took their lives away from them, and literally even in their memories in some ways, like that last scene of her being in her old apartment.
Exactly.
So I think that's the difference between what we do here in America. Like, I can't think of an American film there probably is one, but I can't think of one where it just purely shows more of like the massacre side, or the kind of like aftermath in some ways, of a war or battle.
Yeah.
So then do you think those kinds of war films, or I guess non-American war films, are more important because they kind of just, lift the veil of, tragedies and, these events happening outside of our own, borders that, we should know about, but just aren't being told about?
I kind of understand what you're saying with that question, because when the credits rolled on this movie, it really left me with this feeling of ignorance, of like, this was a conflict that I really knew very little about. It was a event that I had never heard of. I just was...
Oh, I never heard of it.
Yeah, I had never heard of this before. And it made me recognize my own privilege in a way of like living as an American. We live a relatively sheltered existence from the rest of the world. And it made me want to learn more about like world history and about like world politics and where we stand. Because I think like one of the overarching questions the whole movie is like, where is the UN? Where is the from everything to like the bombings at the beginning that they're saying like, we're gonna get the airstrikes, and then it's like, bring me the fuel and then the food, and like it's like backup just never comes routinely because of like the bureaucratic machine. And I think there's this like beautiful visual metaphor for it in the film when the Serbian army has taken over and they're starting to move people out of the camp. And the UN soldiers are each standing at their own stall, and then there's one guy running with a line of tape. And each person is like standing at the thing and running their finger around it with the tape to like create a barrier. And it's just this like perfect visual metaphor for the UN standing around, not utilizing their manpower the way they could be, literally running circles around their target, like not doing anything. And then like the you don't see that tape again until you see the mass exodus of people being taken to the buses. Like that's what they were doing in that shot. And that I think was like, I could not stop thinking about that shot. Just the whole, like, afterwards when the movie was over, like that was the shot that stuck with me the most.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that I kind of agree on most of those points that you just said, Philip, because I do think films like this and other ones, I know I kind of had mentioned, even in the notes, films like The Act of Killing, which is about the Indonesian Civil War, like things that are conflicts that we never really hear about. And even to this day, I mean, I would say this interestingly parallels things like what's happening in Jerusalem and right now with Jerusalem in the Palestine. Like I think we're so ignorant to a lot of things that happen there, and it's easier to gain information because it's happening real time. But even then, I think a lot of us are pretty ignorant to what's going on there, and has been going on there for so long. And I think I agree. I mean, I didn't know pretty much anything that was going on with this film or this conflict, and it happened when this is 30 years ago, right?
This was 1995.
Okay, so almost 30 years ago.
Yeah.
And yeah, I think it shows that. I mean, again, I would have been a child when that happened, so I guess that would have explained why I wouldn't have known about it, and unless someone brought it up to me. But it's not something we have in our own history books or people talk about unless you do your own research. And it's something where it does leave this kind of weird feeling that how much are we being sheltered from other atrocities that are happening in our world that we just don't even know about, that need to be talked about more and need to be discussed. And there's probably a lot, and it kind of is a scary thought to think about how little we might all know about different things that are going on in our planet, in our just in our world and on our planet, that if we knew about, I'm sure would bring greater light and help to those people. Just purely from the connectedness of our world. And hopefully, it does become more prevalent the more things happen and the better technology gets, but it's hard to say. But yeah, I love that when films like this are made that help you kind of understand these kind of conflicts and these kind of things that have happened and shaped countries like this.
Yeah. I think that these kind of movies really speak to the power of narrative filmmaking, because I know there's a lot of conversation about, like, what is the more like the better version of filmmaking, right? Because there's like different fields about it, but I don't think that any one is more powerful or more effective than the other. It's like how you use the tools that you have. And I think that, like, this, one of the things that makes this movie work actually was it's like smaller budget. It's the fact that it had to be made in the way that it was really like lends itself, its style really lends itself to that of like a grounded true story. And I noticed it in things like the cinematography, where it wasn't overlit the way that a lot of movies were. Some shots were like darker than they needed to be. When they were outside, they were shooting with like really deep depth of field, which maybe like doesn't like trigger anything, but like for me, what I saw was that like that's closer to a documentary style, where like when you're shooting a documentary, you don't have time to change your filter to like get the right ND and dial it in. It's like, if it's not bright enough and your NDs don't have it, you just stop it down because you have to get the shot. And I think that this movie has things like that happening in it all over the place. And it really lends itself to creating this realistic story. And building on that too, there's, when things do happen in this movie, they're really not on camera. And that could have been either both a directed choice and also a budgetary limitation, because doing, big action sequences and like war scenes and stuff, like those are extremely expensive. Explosions are expensive. Blood is expensive. Visual effects are expensive. But not showing those things is also really, really potent, because there's so much more that we fill in ourselves by not seeing it, And I think that it, again, having that lower budget really lends itself to the story being told and makes it that much more powerful, because it makes it feel that much more real.
Right. That kind of lends to the old notion in filmmaking is like, the actual scariness of like a horror movie is knowing that the horror is coming, as opposed to actually seeing the horror. Like in monster films, like monsters are only scary because you know it's out there, but you can't see it.
Yep.
And I think that's a great analogy you make, Philip, about this film.
I second that about. And I want to believe that it's a director's choice, but you might be right. It might be budgetary, but I want to believe that it was purely director's choice, because it does feel very potent and you know.
I think that I would if based on my experience, it's probably a mixture of both. It is probably we have this budget. What do we do with it? Where do we put our budget in? And making those informed decisions that then also like allow you that creative agency, because one thing that I've heard talking to producers is that like being a producer is one of the most creative positions on set, because you never have enough money and you have to make it work. You have to like stretch it as far as you can, and you have to learn how to be as creative as you possibly can be with what always feels like not enough money, right? And so I think that like a movie like this is like a perfect example of using your budget wisely, of like using it exactly where you need it, rather than putting it to things that we might normally associate with good filmmaking, right? Like getting the perfect lighting and stuff isn't important to this movie. Getting like the most beautiful shot isn't necessarily like going to make this film better. And because they put it into other things like extras, like I'm sure that like there was probably a not insignificant portion of the budget sent to extras, because there are a lot of people in this movie, and that you can't do, like that's not cheap. You're either going to spend a lot of money in visual effects, or you're going to get a lot of people out there and do it.
Yeah. And I think that I'm curious. I mean, I found that it's $4 million was the budget, and I'm really curious how far that gets you in Bosnia, in Bosnia. Because I just don't know. Like, is that it might be a really high budget for them. Like, I just genuinely do not know.
Possibly,
For us, that seems like that's like super low budget, funny enough, but to them, maybe that was a huge budget. Again, you're probably right. It's probably a mixture of both. But again, I just like, there's just a part of me that just holds on to that, like the artistry of everything, and that it was all choice.
And so along that vein, like I want to say it's a directorial thing too, because I feel like if we're talking about things not seen, that's, scary and most effective, I feel like the best scene for that was at the end where, they round up all the guys and they put them in the room. And then all you see is from the top windows of that gymnasium or whatever it is, you just see the guns come in. But then, we cut and we don't even see the actual act of the murder, of the genocide, but you hear the gunshots as the camera's, pulling away from the building where this act is, being committed. And I remember when I saw that, I knew what was going to happen. Like I could feel the impending dread and doom coming as the shot was about to happen. And I saw the guns come out, they cut, and then you hear the firing of the machine guns as the camera pulls away. And right then and there, I can feel my heart just drop and just sink. And, I don't have to see blood. I don't have to see the faces of these people, as they're getting murdered. Just knowing the implication of what just happened was so effective. And I feel like that was definitely like a directorial thing.
Yeah, because I do feel like it is a recurring theme even in the film itself. So that I think, I know we're talking a lot about this at this point, but I do think that because they build upon this idea of things not seen, like it's almost like you're constantly wondering, what are they doing with the men? When they start to kind of allude to it, and then you see them getting dragged to another spot or another place, you're kind of like, why are they dragging them to another place? Like, are they killing them? Like, it starts to creep in, and then doing it that way, I feel like is the ultimate payoff in some way of the unseen, because like you're never quite sure what's happening, and then you sort of learn it, but you don't need to fully see it, because it's just constantly, that is the thing that's constantly being done. It's like a look. It's like the things that are being said off screen or being done off screen that are the most effective thing than the actual things being on screen. So yeah, yeah, it feels almost like because it's so recurring. Again, it might have been a choice to do it that way. Because you're right,
absolutely
it
think
is.
that it was a choice.
Yeah.
I think it was a really smart choice.
Agreed.
I think it's one of those serendipitous situations where
Sure.
the budget doesn't allow for it and the director doesn't want it either.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
Yeah. I feel like they could have done it. Like, I think I'm curious, like, because
I don't know, because so going back to the scene that Moses was talking about when the guns come through and they pull the triggers. I don't know if you guys saw like the muzzle flares on them, but like they were really rough, really bad.
Okay.
Oh wow,
Like
interesting.
Like 2000s YouTube kind of visual effects.
Wow.
Yeah.
Interesting comparison. You know,
Yeah.
to be honest, like I didn't even notice because I was probably just so invested into what was happening.
And I don't think that like that point, like I'm not saying that to take away from the film at all. In fact, I think that the fact that they can do that and get away with it, like if I had seen those muzzle flares in say like Captain America or any other like movie coming out of Hollywood, I would immediately have like walked out of the theater and been like, man, did you guys see those fucking muzzle flares? Those were horrible. What an absolute embarrassment. Who did the visual effects on that? But like I didn't even think about it. Like it like registered with me for like half of a second, and then I was just so invested in what was happening and so like shocked, and that moment of dread had finally come, that like you don't find yourself thinking about it. And that really speaks to the power of the direction in this film and the writing and the acting and everything that's going on to make this movie work.
Yeah, I agree. Totally.
Do you guys want to know a fun little fact about the film that I thought was pretty interesting?
Sure.
So the actress who plays Ida is married to the actor who plays the general that causes the genocide.
Oh, that's fun.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh wow.
Yeah, I read that and I was like, oh wow, that's a how interesting. There's complete polar opposites working on this film.
Yeah,
But
that's so.
in real life, they're the most intimate.
Yeah,
That's crazy.
Something else I found kind of interesting is like the choice of the title specifically, because like you said, it roughly translates to like, where are you going, or like, what are you going to do? But I was looking into it a little more, and it's also a biblical reference to when Jesus is resurrected and is going back. He crosses paths with Peter, and Peter asks him like, where are you going? Quo Vadis, right? And Jesus responds, to be crucified again. And like, I feel like there's something so interesting about that choice of the title.
Yeah. I mean, I guess because the fact that she's because of the ending.
I guess it's yes. I was literally about to say it. Sorry.
Yeah, because
go ahead.
No, it's fine if you want to say it too. But yeah, I was just
go ahead.
Okay. I was just gonna say, because I feel like, especially if it's about him getting crucified and then going back, I think it's this idea that she has every chance to leave, right? Like she survived this horrible atrocity, and deep down, she has literally nothing left in this country anymore. It's been taken by, this foreign enemy, and she's now looked at as kind of an outsider. Like, she should just probably leave. But this idea that she returns to her home country after, essentially, in some ways, like at least emotionally crucified, she is now kind of reliving these horrors over and over again in some ways.
And I think that's a theme too, of like having the opportunity to leave and going back over and over and over again, right?
Yeah.
Like, she is already in the compound when they close the gates, and yet she goes back and like keeps fighting and gets her family to come in. And then when they start taking in, and like the UN is getting ready to leave, she's on the list. She could go, and yet she keeps going back, and she keeps going back, and over again. You have that theme of like returning and like staying where you are despite the suffering that you and the people around you like are enduring.
Yeah, agreed. Damn.
All right. Well, before we wrap this up, is there any final thoughts on the film and the message it's trying to put out in the universe?
I don't know. I mean, I think that it's absolutely worth a watch. I think that is
I would agree.
Yeah, it's a hard movie to watch, but it's worth it to view this.
Yeah, and to echo that point, and I think this is more of just a grander thought about these kind of films and war films like that, just to kind of almost repeat myself and what a lot of us have been saying, or what we've all been saying, that these kind of films are so important and should be viewed in some ways. Like, I think there are like some films that like I see, especially when it usually comes to war films, that I'm just like, you should see it and it needs to be seen so it can be remembered. Like, it's like you need to see these kind of atrocities, so like hopefully we can learn from our mistakes. And even though it's just a film and you think, oh, it's meant to be entertainment or whatever, it's still like these kind of films are like meant to, I feel like, to teach us something. And I feel like it's so important to view these kind of films. And I would put it up there with like films like Shoah. If you have never seen Shoah, it's like this 9-hour long documentary about the Holocaust. And up there, and the reason why I bring that one up too is just this idea of like needed to be seen historical things. And even though that was a documentary and this is a narrative film, but in some ways it's documenting a thing that you should learn about.
Yeah, very docu-style, yeah.
Exactly. And I just mean, and just that it's an event that should be seen, and even if it is tough to watch, I think do yourself a favor and watch it and learn from it, and just so you can educate yourself in some ways about things that are going on.
I mean, I think that's one of the things that's so great about foreign films in general. Just being able to watch things from other cultures, from places that we don't normally think about, people that we don't normally hear from, and it's a good reminder of like everybody in the world has experiences. Everybody in the world is like living a life that is fully separate from our own, completely out of our vision, and it's a great opportunity. I think that films provide such a great opportunity to really put yourself in the shoes of other people around the world. And, sometimes what we see in those and like what we have to remind ourselves of is not always fun. It's not always, a good time, like another round, but like these are real world experiences by people who are alive today.
Absolutely, yeah.
This isn't even just like remembering history. This is like remembering lived experiences by people.
Moses?
No, I think I would just have to echo, what you guys said, because honestly, I do remember these events happening as a child. I think I was like 10 years old. I didn't exactly know what was happening, but I definitely heard, the words Bosnia a lot at that time. It's definitely a film worth watching and just knowing. And, as an American, it's good to see that there is still people out there that, have different experiences and that we should know. And in a way, kind of like makes you appreciate life that much more, in a way. So
yeah,
I'll just leave it at that, but everyone should check out this film. We all agree it's definitely an amazing film, but I think that's going to do it for us on this episode of One for Safety. Once again, hit us up on the Discord, Instagram, slide into the DMs. Like and follow and subscribe to us on all the streaming podcasts. And until next time, this is One for Safety. We'll see you soon.
Bye.
Bye.